Hi, I'm Lisa Chissis. I'm the president and owner of Flex-a-lite. I'm going to show you how to install this new radiator fan combination as well as an oil cooler for the C3 Corvette. First things first, we have to disconnect the battery. Now on this vehicle, the battery is actually behind the driver's seat. You're going to want to grab a couple of friends in order to remove this hood because it's a bit awkward to get it taken off. Once we remove the hood, we need to drain all the fluids. This vehicle does come with an expansion tank. We're actually going to remove the radiator cap here, not the radiator cap that's here. Once we've got it all drained, we can go ahead and start taking out some of the stock components because we're going to remove the stock belt-driven fan assembly so we can install one of the electric fans that's coming with our unit. I've loosened up 2 bolts here on my alternator, right here and here. As you can see now, I can pivot it up and I can release the tension on this belt so I can remove the fan assembly later. Next thing I'm going to do is remove these 2 bolts up here. I've got some bolts at the bottom that are going to come off as well, so then my fan shroud will come out. Okay, now that the radiator's out, we're also going to remove this bracket here because it no longer needs to be part of our assembly. Before we put the radiator in, we're going to go ahead and install these rubber isolation pieces. You can see I've got them pretty well lined up in the top of the tanks here and down here, and kind of lined up with the second channel here on all 4 corners. Next, I'm going to use the cooler brackets if I'm installing the oil cooler. You can see how I'm using the T-channel here with the T-bolts provided so I can get the brackets mounted before I put it in. Okay, now as you can see, we've installed the spacers here to drop down our sway bar. Before we put this radiator in, remember we're going to line up these studs with the stock grommets that we reinstalled. You can see I've given myself a little visual here so it'll help me to guide it in. Here's our mounting bracket that's going to mount the radiator to our support right here. You can see I've got T-bolts that are going to go down into this second channel here. And then I want to use my washer with my bolt. I've got a rubber spacer. This is all going to go through here. Use another washer and a bolt on the other side. So I'm going to keep these loose in order to position it first. This is what your oil cooler is going to look like once it's assembled. It's coming from the factory with the 2 rails here. I've got 4 bolts, and then I've got 8 gator clips. You can see how these gator clips go around the return line, and I'm going to use the bolts to go through and mount the cooler without having to go through the core. Okay, now we're going to install our oil cooler onto the brackets. You can see it's positioned so that all I have to do is slip it right on over. And I'm going to have 4 T-bolts, and I'm going to slide in from the back side and tighten up. Now, these come with a 3/8 barb fitting right here, but you can special order with a 6AN if you'd prefer. As you can see, we've reattached the lower radiator hose down here. Next, we're going to put back on the inlet hose back up here. We need to tighten back up our fan belt. Of course, we have the bolts that are securing our pulley. Now remember, this will rotate forward so I can get my belt back on. Back tight. Now we're ready to move to the controller. Here's the controller that's going to come with your kit. You can mount this wherever you want, but we suggest that you do it within 18 inches of your radiator inlet because this probe is going to need to mount right into here. Now I'm going to choose probably about right here for my controller, but let's talk about the positive and negative. I know it might seem tempting to use this as your positive source, but it's important. You're going to go all the way back to the battery for both the positive and the negative source in order for my fan to work properly. Now we've gone through a step-by-step instruction for each one of these connections, even how to put in the probe. You can see that on the Flex-a-lite YouTube channel. Now that I've got the hoses reattached, I can go ahead and put in some of the Flex-a-chill coolant additive. This is going to help protect the aluminum in my system, also reduce some engine temps. That can go right up in here. We're going to reuse the stock radiator cap that came off the original one, and we're going to install this 3/8 fitting here and reattach the hose to the expansion tank.